there. He always just says hello. I see Steph in there, and I see Prima Materia, who is Dan's friend. So, Dan, you have a friend in the audience.
Hey, Sahara, good to see you.
And also, thank you to anybody listening later on Anomalous Podcast Network to audio only, and in the future, past, present, other dimensions, all that good stuff. But let's get started because I have an amazing guest tonight whose name is Daniel A. Seda. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Daniel Seda,
Probably
absolutely.
should have asked that before, but just, I haven't been saying it like that. And you have your PhD, so you're a very educated person, but you also are a very your writing is so vivid. So let's get into who you are. Like, who are you for people that have not heard of you?
Oh, goodness gracious. It's always a hard question because I'm a double Gemini Virgo moon.
Oh, I knew I loved you. I'm sorry. I have a Gemini moon, so it's going to be some
There's
craziness
a
tonight,
lot
guys.
going on. But let's see. Currently, at this present moment, I guess I am a ballroom instructor on the side. I have my own business. It's called Multiviewing LLC, and it started off as a life coaching company. I created a textbook, which was I think my second published book. My first was my dissertation, and I felt as though once you got through a dissertation, you could pretty much do anything. Oh, do you have a pet guest over there?
The window right behind me. So,
No worries.
yeah. Don't worry. I'll hit mute if things get wild. I have boys and dogs everywhere. So,
I love it. Absolutely. And then I teach piano and voice out of my studio. I do both in person and remote sessions. I have students all across the country. And I am currently in North Carolina, although I reside in California. And I'm here actually. I just got off the plane this morning. I took a red eye. So for me, it is quite late, but I'm so excited to talk with you. And I'm hoping my guides give me the oomph and energy to really give this an awesome interview because I'm so happy that you contacted me and that we kind of touched base and contacted each other. And it was such a blessing for me to provide you one of my books. And I cannot wait to hear what you think about it and kind of what you think about the material because it's very now. Of course, we can talk about sort of how the book and the process went, but um, a lot of the publications that I've written were channeled to some degree. I don't really know how these types of things occur, but because I've had such crazy sort of paranormal experiences throughout my life, I just trust and believe and know that there is a quote unquote unseen world out there that I honor and respect and continue to hone my developmental skills to access and to work with in the highest vibrations possible. So hopefully that answers a little bit of your preliminary question.
absolutely. And I'm going to also, yeah, I do have a ton of questions about your writing process, but you asked about the dog. She's laying like on that window behind me, panting.
Oh
It's
yeah.
we're in Kentucky, so there's a fly in here. We're moving. Oh my goodness, it's Kentucky in summer, and it's like ugh. I won't
Hmm.
even say what I think of what it is, but it's no. I love Kentucky, guys, but it's just too hot for me. So my first question, and I'm gonna. This is more of like a commentary. It's super weird because I feel like I know you after reading this book, and I actually have the copy right here. And thank you so much for sending it. My husband's always on me about buying books. I'm not working right now, so and it's I started reading it and I like couldn't stop. Like I read it in 2 days, and then I
Oh
reread it in preparation of this. And
wow.
I yeah. So what is do you want to give like a brief overview of what the book is about? And like you said, it's very current. You talk about the big C in there, and how it affects people. And it's kind of like the beginning of it, it's kind of like a statement to that to me, how it changed people, sometimes for the better or worse, or just to make them different. So, what is your book about in your own words? And how did it even come about? And like, was it triggered by experiences that you've had, or because a lot of it in there sounds very familiar to me as an experiencer and
Mhm.
as a paranormal weirdo. So
Yep, I love it. I love you say paranormal weirdo because I'm so there with you, and I firmly respect that and encourage it. Okay, so let me just actually say, so this book was written in 20 days, so 20 chapters in 20 days, and with all due respect, that's not a very normal thing, I don't think. I was living, and remember, we're dealing with the quantum realm where things are not quite understandable, kind of on a linear human, I guess you could say, level. So, as I was writing the book, I swear to you, Priscilla, as I was writing the book, I was sitting here, my fingers are typing, and I'm texting my editor going, "Oh my gosh, can you believe what happens to this character? Guess who this character is?" I had no idea. I did not have a blueprint of this book whatsoever. I literally just, like, meditated for a few minutes, connected to my guides, went to the computer because I knew, as a star seed, we know when our soul is called to do something, and this was one of those, projects that I had. So I just simply sat, at the computer, and just like this, I have my laptop on my legs here, so hopefully it doesn't move around too much, and I just sat and I wrote, and I was communing with my team, and, any good writer, I think, is able to really utilize their own lived experiences and find a way to creatively, make it more palatable and understandable for other people. So for me, every single one of my writings, every ounce of my work is has always been, as far back as I can remember, not really for me. It is on a soul level, it is, very mission oriented. I care very deeply about the human race, and I always have, and I've gone through a great deal of, challenges throughout my life. Medically speaking, I had cancer when I was 4 years old. I had a near-death experience at 5. I had a very challenging biological family, that I had to sort of live through and learn from and learn with. And then also to make the decision to sort of exit situations that were really not benefiting me or the other individuals as well. So once I started discovering more about my starseed nature and my connections with my team, who I had experiences with since 5 years old, that I can remember, um, the world has just opened up so dramatically. So this book is sort of a culmination and sort of the first of a three-part series that I will be starting the second book pretty soon, writing
Oh,
this.
I'm excited.
I know, and my friends and my audience is really excited. They're like, "You better get book 2 out as soon as possible."
Yeah, especially with how it ended. I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
And I was reading it, not to give too much away, but I was reading it during like Pride Month. So I was just like, yes.
Yeah, and honestly, I had absolutely no idea, Priscilla, that was going to happen. No idea. And it's just crazy. So I'm able to sort of take my creative sort of, double Gemini kind of, very, uh artsy, very empathic, sort of intellectual brain, and then meld my critical analysis, Virgo moon, doctoral thesis sort of, uh, research-minded brain to culminate it into this lovely book. So, just talking a little bit about the book. The main protagonist is Dr. Charles Forthright, and it is very funny to even say that outright because a lot of the information I was getting to write in the book, I would hear, my team is very gentle yet dogmatic when necessary, but very beautifully highly evolved and really respectful of my process within this human incarnation. So I remember hearing the word forthright, and I just thought it was very beautiful because I wanted to write about my authenticity and my story, but through the lens of an entirely different character, still with some characteristics of mine. For instance, he's a doctor, teaches psychology in a particular area in the United States. I had a similar job doing the same thing. There were, I don't want to say too much, but there are a tremendous amount of similarities, within the character's experiences. However, it was so interesting because the process of an author, you're quote unquote creating a world for the audience, but in doing so, it's my hope that we are imparting something that is timeless and universal through these characters. So it's almost like a beautiful verbal paintbrush. And I remember having conversations, with my peeps and going, should this be about me? Not necessarily. Um, I want this being that this professor encounters to be almost angelic. Well, what does that mean? Question, question. Are we going with the old paradigm of angels and demons, or are we actually going with a little bit more of the scientific approach, which is the more ET contact and stuff? So building these bridges of understanding not only within myself, but utilizing them and expressing them through the book. So Da'anael is how you pronounce the being's name. Da'anael is yes, my name is Daniel, but 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 it's funny because like I never meant it to really be that way. I wanted it to kind of sound like angel, but with
Yes.
yes, thank you. Yeah, you feel me.
And IL is like of God, and the ending, IL, the sound out, is, it's a very angelic thing, and it means a servant of God, pretty much. So our messenger from God, and it's beautiful. I like it.
Yes, and I could have this first part slightly incorrect, who knows, but according to some whistleblowers who are in major contact with ETs with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. I do believe Da, um, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something to do with like love or God or something. So Da'ana El, love, angel,
Yes.
God, etc. So that really helped. And also, it was interesting as a writer. And that little Virgo moon comes in. It's like the little tiny particulars. Was I gonna put the apostrophe after the da,
Right.
but right, but I finally just ended up going, "No, girl, just put down the Anna L, have them pronounce it which way you like, leave it to the audience, don't control too much, just do what you can, show up, and the message will be delivered." So
Absolutely. And there was a lot of beautiful messages in there, um, that a lot of star seeds kind of got during COVID. And I
mm,
understand like the writing process and creating of these characters, they have the life of their own. And I was writing in 2014 a book about, I started it as like a spooky angel story in high school. And then my doctor, oh my God, my doctor,
mm,
my teacher said, what if you write something like this? Because it was first a short story. And he's
mhm.
like, what if you write something like this and then go shoot up the entire school? Because it was like, not something that like I was a little, I liked Stephen King and I liked all the scary stuff. So I was writing something scary. This was not supposed to be your typical angel. And also like with being a sensitive person, I had demonic visitations and astral attacks and all this horrible stuff. So I was familiar with things that most people think are creepy.
Mm,
But I picked it up in 2014 and I stopped writing again because my brother passed. And that's when my big awakening hit. My big awakening hit where I realized like these are not angels. Like
mm,
as they've been angels my whole life, and I'd seen some other beings that looked alien, but it's none of it. They were light beings because I don't recall ever seeing wings on any of these things, and they were very loving, kind of like the ET in your book.
mm.
And the ET in your book is Arcturian, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So I did an episode with another lovely star seed, Savita, and we talked about the different lineages of star seeds. So what do Arcturians generally come and present? What do they represent, and what do they kind of bring to our evolution as a species and as souls?
Wow, wow. Awesome question. So here's the deal. So, the Gemini, we have two different, unfortunately, two different sides. We have two like polar opposite of extremes within our brains simultaneously whenever making any decision. So I will kind of give you my perspective, and then I will give you more about the research perspective, if you don't mind. So my perspective with my main guide, who apparently is Arcturian, um, I had a near death experience at 5, and he was with me, and it was amazing how and I say he, but there's a little bit of an androgynous energy, and I did talk a little bit about that in the book, but it's mainly he, so it feels. And he was always so gentle with me in a way that I had never really experienced from my biological parents at all. So he was just loving and very understanding and so and I'm trying not to cry about it because it's very, deep to me, but he was so respectful of earthly process. And once I started getting older and realizing kind of who I was, the connection just got stronger and more mature. So it's just been a really beautiful thing. So I will say, ETs have been, around for a very long time and have been assisting the human race, not just, genetic manipulation in a relatively positive way. It depends on how you look at these types of things. But, we are the conglomeration of 22 and or plus genetic races as human beings. We are extremely powerful and extremely loved um, by the benevolent species and races within our cosmic neighborhood. But in general, my experiences were I never felt that I was ever alone with with my connection with the beyond, but I always felt very alone on Earth because um, I didn't really feel like I had a very strong connection with my family, and that brought a lot of turmoil. And so I was always like, yes, but there's more. There's something here. There's somewhere here. I would have dreams that were extremely prolific. Many of them were almost like tests, intellectual, heart centered tests, not texts back then in the 90s and 80s and stuff. But they were helping me evolve my consciousness and my human understanding of what my soul's mission was in order for me to show up better with other people. I and many other star seeds, I have always felt extremely foreign. We're able to think very complexly. That's not even a word, but and be able to utilize our empathic and telepathic skills. Um, and we do tend to gravitate a little bit to sort of the dark side of things when we're younger because we're so sensitive, and some of us have the natural calling to be the warriors within the darkness, right? And to be able to see and know what those things are, so that then we can try and bring about sort of a conscious transmogrification and an evolution of a particular energies, right? Dolores Cannon talks about the generators that come in, the second waves and whatnot. And, there's all that. So then we can talk forever. Then at 25, I had an out of body experience. I was hit by a taxi on Park Avenue. I think it was Park
Oh,
Avenue.
wow.
Whoa, that was insane. I just finished teaching a yoga lesson on
Oh
the
my
east
goodness.
side, on the west side, and I was walking to the east to go to where my apartment was on the subway or whatever. And I, you know how time stands still? There was something in me that kind of was like, it didn't really say don't step, but it was
Mhm.
like, You're stepping and you're going into this thing and it's going to change your life, kind of, sort of.
My goodness.
Whew. So the light turned red. There were no cars. I took my first step, and then a few others began behind me. Just then, boom! Out of absolutely nowhere, a taxi comes, poof, and I gotta tell you, I felt absolutely nothing. I
My
felt
goodness.
complete bliss. It was the weirdest thing. Um, I was out of my body, but in my body at the same time. I saw what was going. I'm telling you something right now, and I say this, and I've kind of stopped crying while I've been saying this because
Mm.
I now have inculcated it into my truth. Because this was an experience that was uncanny and undeniable. I felt a being pick me up in his large, loving arm like I was the most precious child in the world. And remember,
Oh,
I was 25 years old. Picked me up like this, the sweetest and softest embrace you can ever possibly imagine, and laid me on the ground gently. Now, that is not what anyone else saw. They saw some boy got bam, bam, smack, psh, and just
yes.
fly. And I actually have one tiny little stitch in my forehead, but my entire forehead was scraped on the concrete, the pavement, and blood was going everywhere, and it was crazy. Now, the crazy me, who had just finished teaching a yoga class, I was quite limber. I got up from the accident. sat in lotus position in the median of Park Avenue. My life is absolutely insane, and I just sat
I
there.
really need to center after getting hit by a car. Like, hey, if there's any time where you need to go into Lotus and like come back, that's the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, little Ecopata Capatanasa, a little pigeon pose right there, it would've been great. But I sat there because that's the only thing that my body and soul wanted to do at the time, and I did that, but the feeling of that being's arms around me, it was unbelievable. It was the most beautiful thing, and I write about it actually in my memoir. So I have a memoir called Waiting for Life. Um, yeah, I kind of forgot the rest of the title, but it's Waiting for Life. And that was the story of like my first kind of, 30, 35 years or so of life. And it was written in a very human way, right? There's a lot of humor involved. Um,
Mm,
and it deals with the challenges of the human experience. And I talk about my family in there and what my experiences were with all that. But I do talk about my near death experience. I talk about my out of body experience, and then, these types of memories, they stick with you
mm.
because they're so out of the norm of thinking. Now, because I had cancer when I was a kid and because I experienced tremendous pain, I have a very good memory because, I don't know, I guess, I was able, people who have experienced traumas, they almost like concrete memories within them
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of,
At a very young age too.
yeah. And it was weird because when I was experiencing that near death experience, as a 5-year-old, you only know what you know, but there was this conscious understanding as I was watching my body being operated on in the presence of my guide, and I knew several things. And this type of knowing is remarkable because I also experienced this type of knowing when I was, in the presence of two different other alien species, and we can talk about that pretty soon. But I was sort of, I don't want to say beamed up, but I guess you could just say I was present on, um,
Mm,
uh, a ship, but it wasn't a very good ship,
mm.
not that I can recall. And my purview was narrowed so that I could only see what was directly in front of me. I wasn't allowed to see around me. And I
Yes.
and I do believe that that was my team protecting me
Yeah.
from, right? Because my team has always been there. And the more I continue to honor that relationship, the more it is just, it's really unfathomable the things that they have protected me from. And I'll even say too in New York City, being an extremely sensitive young man, um, and escaping death, and severe attack probably 3 or 4 times in my
Oh
life,
wow.
standing in my truth with these humans who definitely wanted me to end my life, but knowing and trusting in a crazy non-logical way that I would be just fine. So,
Yeah.
anyways, lots of strange things. I forgot where I was in the
Oh,
conversation.
it's totally no, that's all very good to hear, and I kinda asked you I don't even remember what I asked
Oh,
you,
the
but I believe it
Arcturians.
was oh, yeah, the Arcturian. Okay,
Okay,
so Arcturians kind of, um yeah,
I'll
this is your experience with the Arcturian guides, right? And kinda like the Arcturian energy, because a lot of people have this, like, solid vision when they say Arcturian, it's this and that, right? But, it's a to me, it's they kind of come as energetic streams or streams of energy first.
good. Let me go on with that. That was
Okay.
really so my experiences with them is when I was in New York City and I was in my 20s, I would ask my guides or ask my team. I was developing my psychic senses a bit more of an understanding of them because I've always had them since I was a kid. For instance, I was at a rest stop with my family, once, Turnpike 95, and strangely, we were playing this game, which we didn't do many games, but still. And, it was kinda like, "Well, let's guess how many cars it'll be until dad arrives," because he was meeting us at particular rest stop. And I said, "I know what it is," and I gave the number, and they were like, "Pff, yeah, right. Well, dun, 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 dun," and then, of course, he was that exact number, and I knew it because I heard it. Also too, there are several other times when, um, I would get certain information and I would relay it to certain individuals, not knowing what it was all about, and it was practically always confirmed. So that just goes to show you how strange and amazing these types of things are. Also, I worked for a really cool bookstore in Raleigh, North Carolina. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and they had me as a reader there, so I was able to give readings and mediumistic readings. It
Oh,
was really
wow.
awesome.
That's very cool.
So as I was giving these readings, I recognized that I was kind of being assisted by my guide. And if the conversation got to the starseed experience, I was able to connect with my guide and then find the lineage connection there and
Yes.
relay this information that I had no idea what was going on. And I just said, please take notes because a lot of these things I don't know how to spell, but I can just sort of say it. And so
Right.
they would write it down and then they would research it and be like, wow, dude, that's amazing. So getting back to your question, Arcturians. So yes, in general, they are highly evolved, much higher density. Um, I experienced them. Sorry, side note. 25. I asked my team, where, why do I feel so strange? Who am I? What's going on? And they said, Arc. They said, Arc. That, of course, their gentle, beautiful whisper. It's like, Arc.
Yes.
It's just beautiful. Wonder where I also have my yoga teaching certification, and so my yoga voice, I just mimic them. But, and I was like, "What's this arc?" So then I was like, "What am I, past life in France, like Arc de Triomphe? Like, is this what is this?" But no, that was just thinking too analytically. I had to just experience it because back then I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. And then I asked more. I got persistent and I said, I want more information. I want more information. And then they said Andromeda. And again, I didn't know what Andromeda was. So, cut to relatively recently, Julia Balaz, I think her name is, wonderful cosmic astrologer, galactic
Very cool.
astrologer. And she did my chart. Come to find out, my oldest lineage is Arcturian, and my
Wow.
most recent lineage, or my most recent life, or whatever, is Andromedan. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
and it was
Yeah.
all done with the charts and everything, and she didn't know me, I didn't know her or whatever, and
Yeah.
that
I
was
wanna get her book. I wanna get her book so bad because I've seen it and I do, charts on the side, not like for friends kinda thing. Like, I know how to do it, but it takes a lot of time,
does.
to do somebody's chart, but I know she does a class on how to read for star seeds.
Yep.
So that's definitely on my bucket list to read her book to do for people.
Yeah, and so a little bit more about the Arcturians. I have never gotten a name for my guide. I have never gotten a solo name
Um,
for any of them, and I don't try because it's like, why would I pry into
exactly.
something that doesn't need to occur? And so what I get from them is this beautiful collective experience of knowledge and love and compassion and wonderfulness continuing to assist me in my process. I'm really sort of mission oriented. I know many star seeds are, and finding that gentle balance between self care and
Yeah.
doing too much
Yeah.
is very important. Uh, I will tell you that I think it was only 2 nights ago was the first time I had gotten 8 hours of sleep in. I'm talking probably decades.
Oh, I'm there with you. I'm there.
It's not like I try, but, I try very hard. I mean, Lord knows I've tried everything, but it's just I'm doing a lot of work at night, and so many of us are as
Yes.
well. Now, I will say before all of this wonderful stuff with the Galactic Federation of Worlds and everything, and this sort of, their assistance, on their end to try and rid us of this horrible dastardly control that the regressive ETs have had over us and our race for a very long time. There were lots of dreams that I had that I was like a warrior, but I was never a warrior like
Right.
tough guy. I was doing more of like the psychic sort of uh,
Yes.
loving sort of things, but it got tough. But I was never the one to have the guns and this and that. That just wasn't my foray.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Arcturians are that highly intellectual
Yeah.
yet also highly compassionate, beautiful. relatively objective, as much as one can be, and that knowledge and that understanding has really helped me in areas of my life where I've needed, a great deal of balance because, in my 20s, I was all over the place because I didn't know, like, what was
No.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, Lord knows I got on meds and stuff, and even
Oh
then it
my
didn't
goodness.
do anything, so I was like, "What's going on?" So then I did yoga and all these spiritual wonderful things, and
Yeah.
even as a young kid, I was a fat kid, I was the jovial kid, that
Mhm.
was repressing a lot of challenges, um, but yeah, I learned from all that, and, there's never a moment when I completely feel alone because and I'll say just a few little experiences I had. So, my chosen mom, she's been with me since I was 19 years old. She gave me my first psychic reading and completely blew my mind. She actually told me a few years after that, she goes, "You're gonna be doing what I do, but better." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "No way. No way, Judy. That's not possible." 'Cause I really looked up to her. She
Yeah.
was so intelligent and caring, and she gave me that, like, earthly mom energy that I really
Yeah.
needed. And, I forgot what oh, yeah, and one experience I had with Judy at the kitchen table, she was drinking her herbal tea because she's total Virgo, so most Virgos are very sensitive to, like,
Mm.
everything, and there's just
Yeah.
allergies and stuff.
Yeah.
So, she was gluten-free and dairy-free and everything,
Yeah,
so
and then they try to fight it and pretend like they're earthly, and then it backfires, and then they go back to their
"No, we need to hang out, honey, you're amazing, I love
I have
that."
a Virgo rising, so people think that I have my life together because of the Virgo rising, but I'm Aquarius, Gemini, so I'm just crazy.
But see, you're better at, like, helping other people organize their life because
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but, like,
yeah.
I could never actually organize mine, come on.
I love that, we're both kinda like air, and a little bit of earth. Yeah.
Yeah, just enough to keep us normal, my goodness. Add another air in there and holy I don't
Yeah.
even know.
Yeah, my astrological friends call me, like, airhead, like, lovingly
Oh,
airhead. Like
yeah,
I'm like, "Excuse me, don't forget that Earth, that's my only Earth I have in my chart, so I'm gonna keep it." Anyways,
exactly.
so I remember one time at the kitchen table, so I'm sitting, she's off to the side. It was a beautiful day, and we had just, we had some experiences where she was the first person to allow me to develop my skills as a starseed. Like we took this plant that was drooping and dead by the windowsill, um, and we put our energy into it, and we put intentions and all this wonderful stuff. And she said, "Okay, now we're going to have tea, and just forget it. We did our work." Came back a few hours later, and it was completely blooming. Like these things are just so strange, and we didn't touch it, we didn't water it, we didn't do anything. It was just energy. Well, at the kitchen table one time, um, I remember, um, we were talking about highly evolved things, and so of course, that raises our vibrations, and we
Mhm.
sort of we help each other in that beautiful energy bubble, and all of a sudden, I saw, I wish I could describe this, an opening in time. I saw a pinpoint of this light that is not like any light I've ever seen before in my life. It was light that encompassed more colors than I can possibly imagine, and yet it was just iridescence. Weird. So the pinpoint of light started, and it was over Judy's left shoulder, so I was watching it over her right from my perspective. And all of a sudden, she's talking, and everything's fine, and the light opens up like an aperture and then slowly closes, probably 4 seconds, not even. It wasn't quick, it was just this precious knowing,
Yeah.
and that was it, and that was done, and I was like, "Judy," because I kept my eyes totally open, the Virgo in me is like critical analysis,
Mm.
evidence, am I
You're looking for, like, crystals that are making prisms and, things
all of
reflecting and
this was insane because I saw it over her shoulder. It wasn't on the wall, it wasn't anywhere, it was just hovering
yeah.
over her shoulder, and it opened up, and I'm watching it, and it was like a veil to a different reality was opening,
Oh.
And I wanted my heart, my soul, I'm getting chills actually. My heart and my soul wanted to peer through it and go through it, but I knew that I had to sort of stay here. So I know many starseeds have similar experiences where
Yes.
they, if only they could. You knew
I feel like, yeah, I feel like starseeds like find ways to have out of body experiences for better or worse.
because that's our truth. Like that
We're
is
over
our
there drinking the lotus tea, and I was just talking to this yesterday with a couple of friends and fellow podcasters. We had like a little chat, and I was just like, no, I don't know why I'm here, and I want to leave. Like I love my family and everything, you know, and I love people to a fault. Like it pisses me off that I love them so much, but at the same time, like when I had my out of body and experience, near death experience, I was like, they wouldn't even let me get close to them. I feel like they thought I was gonna like grab onto them if I could or something, because I was like, my kids will be fine, you know. And they're like, no, they won't. And
you
they did like it was like, you know, we put magnets together.
yes.
I was like, why did you show me? Because they needed me. I needed to see that, but to know that was there, but simultaneously in this crazy earth that I was trying to escape.
Mhm.
But I had to stay on the crazy earth for whatever reason.
Okay. So
Still trying to figure it out.
you are saying exactly the thing that I experienced when I was 5 years old, okay? Oh my gosh. I knew that I was not supposed to look at the man to my right, because if I did, I would want to go with him.
Yep.
The fact that you said that is absolutely spot on. I knew I was not supposed to look at him, because if I did, I would want to go with him.
Right.
Had a job to do here. And he even asked me, and remember the ask, it's not always like verbal,
You
like,
don't actually get a change. That's not even like when they ask you stuff too, that's just like,
yeah,
but I said, take me now. And they're like, oh, we didn't mean it like that. They're like,
yeah,
let me see that contract, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Say that
no.
I'm here.
I wanna see that pen. I wanna see the fingerprints, see if I really did this or not. But, like, the way in which they communicate, it's hard for us to kind of explain to a lot of people who really have just never experienced this type of stuff and or don't believe these things exist, because it's not as if they're talking, "Hey, Dan, you should probably
Right.
do this."
Which is like
No,
what happens with some like ghost or spirit encounters, right? They get the disembodied voice. This isn't actually like a voice.
it's
The like
hologram.
saying I heard a voice doesn't feel like the right language for it.
That's right. And my dissertation did talk about how to see the voice in
Oh,
different ways, because I utilized vocal intervention as a voice teacher to
oh my
access
goodness.
more transformational opportunities or transpersonal opportunities to experience one's more authentic truth.
Oh, I'm
So
such a nerd. I want to read your dissertation.
please, if you'd like to sleep at night, it's a great. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's but but yeah, feel free. It's on ProQuest, and I can even send you one if you'd like. But I forget where I was going. Oh yes, oh, yeah. And as I saw my body on the table being operated on, I knew it was my body. But remember, this is a 5 year old. But even still, it's a near death experience. So my consciousness was raised to such a degree where it wasn't as if I was just a little 5 year old kid.
Right.
This was almost on a soul level.
Yes.
So I knew that that was my body, and I saw him being um, packed full of ice to try and decrease my fever, and I saw my body like stiff as a board because I had a grand mal seizure. Oh, and it was crazy. But what the information or the question I got from him was, "Do you want to stay, or don't you want to stay?" Um, Look at all the or look at all the things you would miss.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Like
see?
it's like a cheesy like montage of like mountains and your kids and cats and dogs and like anything beautiful on the earth. They want to be like, remember, this is here.
Because that at the fundamental core, above all the programming, is the actual truth of our planet. That
Yes.
beauty, that prosperity, that wonderfulness, that truth that so many of us starseeds have, which is one reason why we tend to be a little gullible, a little bit, simply because our connection and our truths are very different from the 3D paradigm, where it's like, extremes, conflict, all these types of things. Many star seeds have abilities that others find very upsetting. You know, like we tend to be the energetic light bulbs sometimes in a room, and that could blind a lot of people. I've gotten that throughout my life in many different ways. And I heard a really cool thing. I think it was Danny Henderson was interviewing, I think a day or two or so ago, this I think she was a doctor, this woman, I forget her name, but they had a conversation about frequency and how they were kind of trying to work on attracting a partner within a particular frequency, and how some of us have higher frequencies, and how that can really play both positively and negatively with other people, because we unfortunately can show people their shadows, and
Oh,
we really don't mean to, right? There's no ill
yeah,
intent, but because we know truths that are just undeniably ingrained within our soul, and we choose to express our soul more than we choose to worry about, who's the next person on American Idol or whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Not to, if people care about this, it's totally fine. But
Yeah, like I love fashion and makeup, but I'm not. It's not like my. It's not like my. You can't tell I like fashion. I'm wearing the grandma sweater, but it's nerd fashion right now. But
it's funny.
like I enjoy. I like looking at it more.
Yeah.
Like I like seeing people's dresses and more like because the creation of it.
Oh,
Not so much the celebrity wearing it. So I get that. I get how people get caught up, but to me, it's just so silly to like
mm,
invest all this time in that
yeah.
instead of like discovering your own truth or the truths of this earth, which inevitably lead to the truths of the universe if you really keep looking.
Yes, and because I hold these truths to be self-evident. No, I'm just kidding. But, I tend to so weird. I tend to attract partners who are very earthy, like, very of this matrix. My husband, is fantastic. He's very successful at what he does, and I'm very proud of him, but it's almost like we speak 2 different languages,
Yeah.
because it's 2 different worlds that we're trying to meld together
Yes.
to assist each other's process, and if we try and take the highest road, and knowing that, you know, we are trying to help each other as best we can
Right.
with how and what we know, I can only hope that as we move on in the future, that understanding can really be inculcated, in our relationship and our individual beings. It's tough.
It is. I have, yeah, my husband's military guy, not like super
Mm,
serious. Like he's a fun, loving person. He's a double, I think he's a double Pisces. He doesn't know his birth time, but
mm,
he's a very loving person.
yeah,
Um, and he's very open, but he's also like that skeptical thing. But I always say, like, if there was like two of me, like, we'd probably be like homeless or in like a Winnebago by a river or
mm,
just not grounded at all.
yeah,
Because when you're like us, you need kind of like an earthy person to keep you on the earth,
mm.
to remind you that you like, hey, like you gotta eat, you gotta do this, you gotta do normal things.
Yes, and people like you and I mean, it's never it's almost completely foreign to us to think that certain way, because yes, we understand on a logical level, we need to eat, we need to pay the bills, we need to take care of this and that, but my god, it's just so foreign, and I'm really proud of myself for getting through a doctoral program
Oh yeah.
in 4 years. It was a remarkable experience, but thank goodness it was in transpersonal psychology, which is a great opportunity for people to really look at non-physical phenomena, and to be able to quantify it in really sort of valid and credible ways. So I'm really proud of the work that I did, and also the people I was able to meet, and the lives we were able to sort of connect with over the years. But man, it was a journey getting through that process. I'm talking, if I was we didn't actually have this on camera, but before we started talking, I told you that I was kind of a budding writer in my 20s. I really loved writing throughout my whole life, and it was a great cathartic way of expressing myself. And of course, as a double Gemini, we must express ourselves
Oh
in
my
so
goodness.
many
Yes, yes,
ways.
yes. Shout out to my
It's,
Geminis. I can't live without you guys.
I
And I
know.
think the only reason it's like that is they have a Gemini moon. Like I'm secretly as crazy as you guys, so I understand. And you guys tend to do the things that I want to say, but I might be too like polite to say, or
The Aquarius in you.
the
Yep.
Aquarius, I don't want to hurt feelings.
we don't mean to truly. It's just there's a lot going on. And if we don't express it, it's like bad. It's like depression land. But yeah, it's just been really, really great. So yeah.
So we have been talking. It doesn't even feel like 45 minutes.
Wow.
But you have so many amazing questions that you sent me, or talking points that you like to talk about. Um, so I think that the biggest thing let's talk about some starseed stuff, because I meet a lot of people. Before I was into I have to have a balance between like UFO research and like what the government is doing with disclosure, because of it. They need to be held accountable, and they need to admit, certain things. Are we going to get that? I don't know. But I feel like if I don't fight for that for people that need that, then I'm kind of like not holding my part of it. You know what I mean? But then there's the other side of me where like I've written a starseed quiz. I taught a class on starseeds. I have so many friends. I've had all these weird visitations. I've had starseed readings. I see people's like, guides. So like I have that whole other mystical side where I could just be like sound like the craziest person to somebody, but I don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for star seeds, that people are getting these visitations, right, and it tends to seem like with the same type of being.
Mm,
And I try to tell, the big question now is, are they physical or multidimensional? And I don't see why it has to be one or the other.
mm,
Because I think that it's both. Because a lot of people explain their experiences like some people, yes, like their whole body's like picked up and taken on the ship, right? Some people, it's like their consciousness gets abducted,
mm,
because they see it's almost like an out of body experience before they enter these ships or enter these visitations.
yeah.
So, because I've had people say, like, I went into a ship, had a sleep paralysis, but it was like my body was still in the bed.
Mm.
And this is where I met my guide. And they told me all this stuff. How do people start to organize that when they start having these experiences? Is my question. As somebody that's had tons of experiences, it can be hard to kind of like come back after that to everyday life. How do they integrate their star seed lineage and their star lineage and their star seed gifts and mission into everyday life initially?
Gosh, that's a very interesting question. Oof. I wouldn't even know where to start. As you were talking about that in the beginning, I was sort of recalling how my team um, tends to answer those questions for me,
So
where,
talk to you.
yeah, uh, there is never like a single ounce of ego with them ever. And I have heard many, many people in the community sort of have these connections with beings that um, can appear to be quite egoic. Um,
Yeah.
and, you know, um, it's my understanding. Well, I've made a pact with my team for a very long time because when I was a little kid, I remember being in a room and at night, practically every single night, my parents weren't there. My dad was in a different state. My mom was always working the night shift. And so I had to take care of my younger brother. And my constant fear since I was a young kid was that the bad aliens were gonna come and get me, right?
Yes.
And it
Yes.
wasn't like I was watching ET or whatever, it was just no, I knew this, that, like, I had to protect myself and I had to trust my team to
Right.
protect me, because I would hear helicopters over my, ceiling. I'm talking military grade helicopters, like, you can feel and know and hear the difference there,
Yeah, they're
right
very loud.
ceiling. Exactly. And, I would hear little whispers and stuff, or what I thought were whispers. It's very complicated, shadows, this and that when I was really young. So I made a pact with my team and I said, only show me the highest and best. Only show me the highest and best. And from then on, basically, I had no more night terrors. I had none of that stuff. And I, the information that I received was always for the highest and best.
Right.
So when I give mediumistic readings or whatever, or psychic readings, because that is very aligned with my soul mission, I don't get any doom and gloom. But
Right.
for some who are very sensitive, I can't speak for them. I can't speak for the beings that they purport or they claim to be relating to, because I would never want to judge anyone's experiences like that. But we are working through and with so many layers upon layers upon layers of programming that it
Yes.
is absolutely unbelievable to even think that we even know half of the truths that are out there.
Yeah.
So with that, that type of knowledge has to be developed slowly and steadily over the course of one's life. If someone is popping onto the radar and has all the answers, I'm not going to name a name, but if they think they know it all, and there's no questions, and there's sort of this sort of robotic,
Mm,
to them,
yeah.
then I would stay clear of that type of stuff.
Yes, yes. And some people don't know that they just have to talk to their team.
Mm,
And when I say team, he means, your spirit guides in a sense. I know a lot of people don't like that term, but some people use that term, spirit guides, spirit team. And you just have to talk to them. I know it sounds super crazy if you've never done it, but like it's simple as asking. And I beg you to think, why would it be so weird to ask when we're all every major religion has a form of prayer or incantation
mhm.
or affirmations now. Like I see like everybody doing affirmations now, and as a witch, I'm like, you're doing magic, like but
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So somebody has a good comment here.
Chris. Hi, Chris.
Oh, you know this, Chris. Okay,
Yeah.
see. Hello, Chris. Welcome, welcome. I see a lot of people that are here for you. So welcome
Aw.
to the channel, and make sure you
Mm,
like, subscribe, all that stuff. And thank you for, I need more people to come that are, to spice it up a little. Because I
mm,
have some analytical people, like my friend Curious George is very analytical. So I love having new people in there that I haven't seen before. He says it can be difficult, but it's important to keep a strong sense of your own sovereignty and who you know as incarnate humans. Something simple, like I tell people, like as like I get people that are like, I'm a baby witch. What do I do? Like set your parameters.
mm.
Just say like the only thing that's allowed in this room right now is happy, loving, whatever. You state your parameters because when you open like a channel like that without saying it, and people don't realize every night in your dreams you're kind of opening a channel when you go to sleep. So I tell people if it's like a nightmare thing or a sleep paralysis thing, state your parameters before bed and keep doing it. But sometimes you have to believe it too,
Mm.
because if I just say stay away bad gray aliens, let's
Yeah.
not do that tonight, and you don't believe that you are powerful enough, then um, if you don't believe in yourself, then your guides won't even be able to help you because you're making a barrier between it.
Oh,
So just try and stay. And then as for protection, I think we kind of answered that. And um, I think you kind of answered that saying like, just saying to your guides that I don't want any of that happening.
mm.
And then we have Benji says that crystals can help. Do you use any crystals for that?
I do, and,
I
like,
do
you're
too.
sort of answering all the questions, and, like, absolutely the way I would as well. So first of all, Chris is amazing. He has these, amazing devices called the Deems device. I'd highly
Ooh,
recommend checking out his website, DEEMS, Deems device. I have one of it, and it's, phenomenal. I can't wait to be, on one of his little podcasts because I have some really cool experiences to share. But they work with crystals as well and magnets, and so George, let's see, well, Benji? Or no, I don't know. The
yeah,
crystals.
Benji. Yeah.
So the Arcturians actually, they do work a lot within the dream state. And we were talking about sort of working, healing the consciousness and stuff, and having visitations through consciousness. A lot of their work deals with the dream state. I'm in this really cool dream group with Daniel Rekshan, who's a really cool quantum hypnotist. Um, with Dream Sanctuary, I believe, if you check that out on YouTube. And he did my first ET regression, which was amazing. Um, so yes, crystals are really, really important. Crystals are such amazing devices. We tend to look at them as just rocks. It's just fascinating to me to know how humans look at. our
Yeah.
our world as just, you
That's
know,
it. That's it.
like a
Like
little bit
like
of
it's a rock and that's
parsley.
it.
Yeah, a little bit of parsley on a dish. It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Those are like technological things,
Yeah.
especially if you
Well,
can
even
ex
parsley, right, has all these crazy heal they used to call it if you eat too much of it, it's the devil's lettuce. And I know people say that about weed, but parsley used to do that. Like it used to make people like you can poison somebody with parsley. I mean, I'm not saying go poison people, but you know, anyways, crystals. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I agree. It's weird that people just kind of like see it, right, but don't
yeah.
think anything else of it.
Yeah, and, we have all of what we need to heal ourselves, not only within ourselves, but also around us on this planet. We were talking about parsley, but also cilantro,
Yep.
gets rid of heavy metals. Like, if you
Mm,
look into the healing properties of all of this stuff, it's been around for eons, and there's reasons why. Because, truth stands the test of time. These pills and stuff, I'm sorry, it's like
yeah.
we're getting away from that type of stuff. I don't
Yep.
wanna give any medical advice, but, um, utilizing more of the quote unquote alternative methods or the more holistic
Right.
approaches has completely changed my life. There was a point when I was very vegan. I was sick. I had MRSA for a little while when I first moved to San Francisco. It was very challenging, didn't have a lot of money. And I healed myself through changing my diet and, eating,
Yeah.
leafy greens, and I felt fantastic. Everything was high alkaline. I had a water purification. I used crystals in my water. Like,
Right.
my Capricorn husband, met me in the beginning, and it's totally true. You Capricorns,
That poor guy.
hard workers. God, stubborn as all heck. But
They
but
tend to let people do their thing though, so you got to respect them in that.
yeah, and we need all types of people in this world because if it was all just one type of person, it'd be quite a boring,
Yeah,
not so successful planet. We need all types of
absolutely.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching this thing about there's a series right now on Netflix about psychedelic as like you use in psychotherapy, and it kind of pisses me off that like I brought it up to my I take anxiety medicine,
Mm,
and I, I'm kind of mad that people don't read up on that
mm,
as psychologists. Like you are so brainwashed by like the war on drugs. Like, where do drugs come from?
mm,
Who's paying these people to go on the Amazon to find plants? What are they going to do with the plants? They're gonna find the medicine and then they're gonna synthesize it. As people are so with the pharmaceuticals, it's hard. And like, again, no medical advice, but sometimes you need both. You know, like if you have like a heart disease and you can't, and you're beyond the point of eating healthy at that time,
yeah,
or like some people that have, need a tumor removed or something like that. Like, no, I'm not against medical stuff at all, but I just feel like we're selling ourselves short by not exploring other cures,
abs
especially for mental health and behavioral health, because so many people just stop taking their antidepressant and they just spiral and they
abs
die. Like they die in so many ways.
yeah.
So this is a question from Prima Materia. This is your friend, right?
Yes, Sahara.
um, hey, Gemini friend, it's Sahara. What can you say about unity consciousness as well as the new Earth paradigm?
Yeah. Woof. Thanks, Sahara. Wow.
Not to put
Um,
you on the spot, right?
that's wonderful. So unity consciousness. So the Arcturians, and it's so funny because whenever, I can feel my peeps, especially in moments like this, they're really excited. Unity consciousness is basically like their raison d'être, like their reason for being here and being a part of my life and so many other star seeds lives is we have a duty to raise our consciousness to our rightful place. Getting back to Chris O'Connor's excellent point about sovereignty, 100%. If you have kind of a whistleblower person that is not in line with the sovereignty aspect, then be careful what you hear because I understand why there's such an atheist movement because old religious dogma is challenging for some people who wish to really find more of that unity consciousness within their human frame of understanding. Sometimes people have a hard time with the non-physical, but in general unity consciousness it's an opportunity for us to connect more to each other, an opportunity for us to utilize more of that empathic and telepathic and 4D plus skill sets that we have within our DNA and activating our DNA. And this gets into the transpersonal psychology aspect, where we're not just worried about the psyche alone. We're exploring and finding ways to measure and experiment with those things that go beyond simply the human logical understanding alone. So let's talk about quantum theory. I'm no expert, but I have utilized significant aspects of quantum mechanics and stuff within my work, my doctoral program. But in general, the basic premise is everything is connected, and if you really understand what time is, time, I don't want to say is an illusion because it's kind of a faux pas, but there's truths to that. Time is based upon, gravity, and we experience it different than other planets do and vice versa. We have a short, limited span of age here. Other planets, they live for hundreds and thousands of years. It's just very different. So our aspects of time are very, very different. But if we consider time within the quantum sphere as something that is non-local and something that can be experienced multidimensionally, then that opens up our understanding to experience more of that which can connect us on a human level. Oh, adorable. Hello,
I'm so
Suzanne.
sorry. I'm having an invasion right now. So I'm listening, but oh, his brother jumped on him. So
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm trying to get them to go upstairs, but
I hear you.
but yes, that's totally true. People don't realize the quantum world, like the time is completely different there. It's not like here where it's 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, I did an excellent regression with Daniel Rekshan, and it was amazing what he was able to kind of help me move into, because my main guide, my Arcturian guide, was with me through this entire process, and it was amazing to witness experiences, both memories of quote unquote past and also future, and just crazy cosmic stuff, where we had a lovely conversation in an interview a few days ago where he was like, let's talk about how time is nonlinear, and let's talk about how quantum hypnosis can be seen in a multidimensional aspect or multi-density aspect. It's kind of hard density dimension. There's so much talk about all that. But in general, I loved how, from my experience of the quantum realm, which is not really, who knows? I'd like to actually talk to Chris about that because he knows a lot of good stuff about all that
oh,
scientific.
so it sounds like I got to get Chris on the show because
Oh,
he sounds really interesting. You'll have to give me his website again. I think I wrote it down, but I can put it in the description after as well for other people.
I don't want to say the wrong website, but it has something to do with Love and Light Media, I believe, maybe .org. I don't know. So, but he's great. Yeah. So I think, getting back to Sahara's question, I hope I answered it well. But if because we're only just briefly getting into quantum mechanics on more of um, a Terran level, like an earthly level, because so much of our truths and knowledge have been hidden from us for such a long time. So it takes these conversations, it takes these perspectives to get it more out into the mass public. So in the book, Priscilla, I know you read it, and thank you
I
for
know
that.
I was smiling. You said Terran perspective in the book. The being always says to borrow a Terran phrase or something to that effect, and I love it because I feel like that all the time.
Yeah. Um, but I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry. But yeah, it's just really important for us to find ways to connect more to each other, because so much of the paradigms are about disconnecting us, because when we come together we are far more powerful. But then again, that's so hard to do when we have so many conflicting um, ways to look at the world. But if we raise our consciousness and we find ways to work on ourselves and heal the wounds as much as possible, and hear from those who have differing perspectives, and also listen to our intuition, whether that is, felt in our stomach, our guts, our heart, our minds. Your body is intelligent. There's incredible intelligence there, and then of course tapping into the soul. Now, it's disheartening for me to hear how some humans um, uh, can't or are perpetually grappling with their connections to the beyond because they almost don't want to, or they it's ingrained in them that to even go there or to even think that is wrong, against doctrine, um, silly. You get, disciplined because, if you think that way, you could go off the deep end and you wouldn't be a beneficial person to society, and all these crazy things that I wish people would recognize that are just that are just they're just programs. I recognized my parents' programs at a very young age. I was a very inquisitive person, still am, and I was always that kid like, "How do you know God said that?" Like,
Yeah, that's how my son is with my oldest one. He's always asking. That's good, right? We should all retain that throughout our life for sure, because that's how we learn things.
yeah. So then how would one, handle a child that's a star seed when they haven't even been able to handle their own traumas as parents, you know? I respect my biological family's, challenges. Um, it has been very, very hard, but, I love them for trying. And I also am able to then connect with sort of the future and love them for accomplishing their mission, however which way they choose to do so in the future. So it's this weird dichotomy where it's like I don't really feel very comfortable having them in my life because,
Yeah,
I have my own trajectory, but then
absolutely.
I also have to heal that beautifully wounded child that, was sincerely abused for a very long time. So it's a continual process, and we're all experiencing that, and the more we talk about it, the more we find ways to find the silver lining somewhere somehow, that will help us experience more of that unity consciousness. So I hope I answered those questions.
That is, yeah, you really did. I feel like you even went above and beyond because that's just, it was almost like a little, it was kind of like the question earlier, like, what do you do? You know what I mean? So you answered my question and then some other questions. Do you have time for one more? Because my good friend Benji has one question and then we can wrap up. I know it's past the hour. It's not like super past the hour, but I know you flew this morning. But yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for that because I think it's going to help a lot of people because it's like you answered the questions from earlier and it was great. So this one right here is from Benji because he says that his first experience had been, he said his experiences have been with the Arcturians specifically.
Okay.
He's a very spiritual guy. Like when the whole Roe versus Wade thing like got overturned, he was out there protesting with his lady and just,
Mhm.
he's just an amazing person. But this explains it because I didn't know he dealt with the Arcturians. What was the first thing the Arcturians told you when you started having encounters?
Sorry, it's so funny. They're so sweet, and they're also quite humorous. Like they're saying like, "Don't forget this." The first thing they did say was, in the hospital. I remember in the hospital, um, everything's going to be okay. Was the first thing they said, and remember, of course, it wasn't like okay language, but it was like that feeling tone associated with the holographic communication. And then when I really asked them, and I was very adamant about who am I, like what's going on, where am I from? They would say arc, arc. They wouldn't even finish it. They would just say arc because they want you to figure it out. That's part of the sovereignty that is so important for us to really get. No longer giving your power away to other people and especially to other beings. It's like you are a precious soul, and it's your job to do the good fight, even if that fight is not always, boots on the ground, like, pow, 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 but if it's also more of the psychic, intellectual, quantum realm as well. So those were the first two things that I can remember my guides telling me, and it was weird because in the hospital, I could feel everybody's emotions. I was really, um, very sensitive child. As you can kind of see, like, I don't know if you wanna get into sort of the biology, but, like, I even look a little bit like an Arcturian, like, bald head, very, circular sort of features and stuff, and sometimes when I look at Vivienne Chauvet, I see a little bit of that Arcturian as well in her, so, these are sort of,
Yeah,
help.
that's you can go all that the physiological rabbit hole too, because
Yeah.
people tend to look like things. Yeah, it was some guy was like Benji actually pointed out a guy told me I look like an alien and all this stuff on Twitter, and I was like, he's trying to insult me, but I kind of think it's cool.
Yeah,
But
and,
yes, that's so cool.
that's a really good, point because raising your vibrations is so important. Like, how can we find ways to find humor in situations to raise our vibration, right? So, I think that was a very good perspective. I'd say thank you very much, and yes, I am.
Exactly. Exactly. We got to take everything, and make it light if it's not and transmute it the best we can.
Yeah.
So, my final question is there anything that we did not address that you want to tell people listening? Like, do you have like a message right now that you're trying to get to people, or is there anything, even just, I have all your websites and stuff. Um, I have your Amazon, I have your all your stuff in the description below for people to find you. But is there anything else that you want to kind of like throw out there for people listening?
Gosh, I don't think so, and also too, my peeps are very kind because they know how tired I am, so they're not gonna, like, channel right now,
Right.
but I think we discussed a lot of stuff, and, I'm just very happy and privileged to have this opportunity, and if anyone's interested, feel free to take a look on Amazon. My books are there, Chronicles of an Arcturian Envoy and Waiting for Life. So, yay, and I'm so glad you read it, I'm so glad you like
I
it.
did. I could not put it down. So if you're looking for a good fiction book, but you're a starseed, you'll find some truth in the book. Laura says, please come back on. Yes, you don't, dude. He sent me all these questions, the talking points that he can answer. We could have like a whole Daniel series, like we could talk. So we'll definitely get you back in the future because we could do like just seriously going down your list here. You have so many. I want to know the answers too. So I'm definitely going to be harassing you again in the future.
Yes.
And yes, you can find all his information in the description. I think I put the link to this book specifically, but
Mhm,
obviously you know how to use Amazon. You can search his author page.
mhm.
Thank you everybody listening live and in the chat. I have some new people in here, so I really appreciate everybody that's been here and everybody that just is just now coming to the channel because of Daniel. And thank you, Daniel, obviously, for your time. I know you're tired and for
Yeah.
sharing so many beautiful things with us, even on accident when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm ranting. And it was totally relevant and you didn't even realize it. So a lot of people are going to hear that message and kind of know what to do now,
Mm.
and kind of feel less crazy,
Oh,
just in general. So thank you to everybody listening live. Thank you to everybody listening later on Anomalous Podcast Network. Thank you if you're watching later on YouTube or wherever. Please leave your feedback, like, subscribe, all the good things. There's other ways to support the channel in the description. Daniel, hang on for a minute afterwards so I could say goodbyes. And I apologize for the kids, guys.
no,
Um,
don't apologize for having children.
I had the
All is
dog
well.
peeking in at one point. She was just creeping in the window, and now I've got kids. Like my son brought a cake over here. I was like, "What is going on?" Like, so yeah. My door actually has a sign that says "Welcome to the shit show."
Oh, love it.
It's a really pretty sign. Like it looks like it should say hello or welcome, but it says that instead. But yes, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for everything. And I hope to. I need to tell everybody though. You might be listening to if you're listening on Anomalous Podcast Network, you're going to be hearing this later because we kind of have everything spaced out like a month later. But if you're watching this like tomorrow, and around the actual date of, you'll see that I'm going to be absent in August because I'm moving from Kentucky to Baltimore
Wow.
and things are going to be wild. So I'm going to pick back up in September, probably like mid-September. So if you guys don't see me for a while, that's what's going on. And thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Hang on for a second, Daniel.
Cool. Much love, y'all.